The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex, deeply rooted issue. It's been a consistent presence in the world's news outlets for almost 70 years, but it exists even more pervasively between the Mediterranean Sea and the West Bank of the Jordan River. Here, in Israel and the disputed territories, the conflict is most prevalent. During our semester spent at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Israel, my friend Danielle, Dekel, and I have learned so much about this complicated issue.
We have found that the most genuine way to learn about the conflict is to speak to people living it every day. Specifically, we feel that people near or exactly our ages have a unique perspective that is relatable to young adults. We hope to share our discoveries with you in a short podcast comprised of 4 short interviews with a group of Israeli young adults.
We interviewed Adi Landress, a 21-year-old Jewish Israeli. Adi just began her first year as a law student at the Hebrew University Law School. She moved to Kiryat Ono, a city near Tel Aviv, when she was almost 6 from New York City. Adi made Aliyah with her American mother, Israeli father, and 2 younger brothers, one of whom is in the army currently. About a year ago, Adi finished the army, serving in the IDF spokesperson's unit in the Public Diplomacy Office, which she discusses in her segments. Our second interviewee, Shirley Lukin, a 21-year-old Jewish Israeli, just started her first year at Hebrew University studying international relations and Asian studies. Shirley, the daughter of Argentinian parents, is the youngest of 3. Shirley moved from Venezuela, where she was born, to Florida in the U.S. From Florida, she and her family then moved to Netanya, Israel, when she was 9. Shirley finished the army a year ago after completing her service in the IDF spokesperson's unit, working in international press.
Our third interviewee, Groer, is a 22-year-old Israeli currently living and working in Holon, Israel. She was released from the army a little over a year ago, where she worked in computers. This past summer, Ol worked at a Jewish summer camp in Canada, teaching Hebrew, and after continued to Mexico for her after-army tiyul. While she is working now in retail, Ol hopes to pursue a degree in communications when she attends university. Our fourth interviewee, Yazzan Baddour, is a 19-year-old Christian Israeli Arab from East Jerusalem. He is currently a college student at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, where he studies engineering. Yazzan hopes to work as a biomedical engineer and a quantum physics teacher after graduation.
While we did our best to make our interviewees diverse, we were unable to recruit a Muslim Israeli Arab. Perhaps it is a slight representation of the self-segregation of Israeli society that we were only able to get people of our culture and religion. But that is a subject for another time and another podcast.
These interviews were conducted in a casual and non-scientific manner, where we asked each young adult 4 separate questions about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This material serves as supplementary information that we hope listeners use in addition to doing their own research on the topic. Tehenu, astamta'al, enjoy.
The first question we asked was directed at the person's perception of the quote-unquote other group, as well as the conflict in general. Here's what first-year law student, American-born Adi Landress, had to say on her experience growing up.
So home for me is a place called Kiryat Ono, which is a small city about 15 minutes from Tel Aviv, which means that growing up, there were no Arabs or Palestinians around me in any part of my day. No Arabs and Palestinians in my classroom at school, not during any activity I had in the afternoon or any youth group I participated in, nothing when I walked home or went to the mall. It just wasn't a population that surrounded me in any way.
First-year international relations and Asian studies student, the Venezuelan-born Shirley Lukin had a similar perspective, being from Netanya, which is an area with a similar demographic to Adi's home of Kiryat Ono.
Unfortunately, the area where I grew up, I did not get to know as many as I'd like.
Yazzan revealed his personal view on the subject.
According to my point of view, both Israelis and Palestinians are fighting over history that is older than hundreds of generations, or over a religious fact that nobody can prove or deny, and stories that we have been listening to since the day we were born, and unfortunately it's getting worse and worse.
Though Yazzan didn't mention it in his interview, he did mention to me that I was his only Israeli friend. I found this very interesting as he lives in very close proximity to many Jewish Israelis. Ol, the 22-year-old from Holon, had a more straightforward opinion.
I believe Israelis and Palestinians coexist in one country.
In relation to their opinions and their army service, both Adi and Shirley spoke about their time in the IDF. Shirley said,
I was in the IDF spokesperson's unit. I worked with international press for 2 years. I think I got more educated in the army. That really shaped my point of view on things.
Adi said,
I enlisted in 2014, about 2 months after Operation Protective Edge, which took place in Gaza. And by that stage, I was much more aware of what was going on. Also, I had a lot of friends who enlisted before me and actually took part in the operation. So I read more newspapers, I saw more TV that was related to the issue, and I knew more. Also, I ended up being in the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson's unit, so I became more involved and knowledgeable about the entire situation.
The second question, which was, does the conflict affect your daily life, had an interesting reactions. As would be expected from the Israeli standpoint, all the Israeli interviewees discussed the conflict's effect in terms of terror, while the Israeli Arab interviewee discussed a different perspective. Shirley said this.
The conflict doesn't affect my daily life. I think if it affected more Israelis' daily life, things would maybe get resolved quicker. I think it mostly affects me when it comes to politics, when it comes to who's leading the country.
Adi talked about how the conflict affected her university choice.
I moved to Jerusalem 2 months ago and started studying at the Hebrew Law School. And when thinking about which university I wanted to attend, the delicate security situation in Jerusalem is something that I definitely took into account and something I still think of every day. I have no trouble saying that the conflict affects my life. And I have friends that still serve in the military, which I'm still worried about every time something happens on one of the borders. And also, just as a person who lives in Israel, and more specifically in Jerusalem, it really saddens me that I don't feel 100% everywhere, and that wherever I go, no matter what time it is, I pay very close attention to everything that's happening around me.
All discuss the Palestinian impact the conflict has.
Since we don't find a solution for the Palestinians, the terror will continue in our country.
Yazzan spoke about his own immobility in the country and the family who are affected by the separation wall.
The conflict can affect my life in so many ways. For example, by limiting me from doing whatever I want whenever I want. Yet, with being raised with the conflict going on, I got used to it, where sometimes I just feel it's normal. Also, the wall that was built might have an effect on me, since I have relatives on the other side of the wall, and they can't visit me unless they have permission.
He went on to talk about how his personal safety is affected by high tension times.
We usually hear something in the news. My parents usually prohibit me from hanging out with my friends because they are afraid that soldiers will stop me and search me, since nowadays everyone is targeted by the soldiers to get searched in a violent way, especially people my age.
The third question asked if the interviewee's parents, family, or friends spoke about the issue, and if so, how this discussion affected their perspective on the conflict. Yazzan talked about his family's relationship to the issue.
This conflict is a part of our lives, so we don't usually discuss it neither with my family or with my friends. And if I do, I'm sure pessimism would come with it.
Or had a straightforward answer once more about how she and her family view the issue.
So yes, my family spoke with me about the issue and they influenced me a lot. We all agree as a family that we need to reach peace between us and between the Palestinians.
Shirley talked about how her family's immigrant status affected their perception.
My parents and my family in general, they're from Argentina, and they're newcomers in Israel as I am. It was never a subject that was spoken about too much at home.
Adi discussed her family and friends' handling of the conflict, as well as her own personal journey regarding it.
My parents, my family, my friends, none of them spoke with me about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I feel like the main reason why it wasn't discussed at home is because my parents didn't want me to fear living in Israel and basically just shield me from the subject for as long as they can. And then, as I said, in 2014, I joined the military. And prior to that, I started screening processing to different positions. And there was no shielding at that point. there couldn't be, because if you're joining the Israeli Defense Force, you need to know why we need a defense force and why you're enlisting to begin with. As I got closer to 17, 18 and joining the military, I started being more aware myself, started reading the newspaper, started watching TV, reading more books about the subject. I just looked more into it, and also became a subject that was discussed amongst friends, just like any other subject.
When we asked our final question, which implored what could be a potential successful solution, unsurprisingly, all 4 students referred to the two-state solution. Shirley shared what she believes makes finding a solution to the conflict so difficult.
I think in both sides there's extremists and people who don't have an interest to get to a solution, and those voices are way too loud. The minute that both sides will have leaders that have interests in getting to a solution, we'll get to a solution. I think it's less complicated than what everyone makes it.
Or gives specific things she believes will assist in reaching peace.
We need to do more activities to strengthen our connection with them. And if we provide a proper education for them and a better lifestyle, then maybe they also agree to coexist.
Yazzan believes in the two-state solution.
There might be a solution for the conflict, which is the two-state solution. Both can agree on ruling the same state without any borders and conflict. This might be a risky idea, but I believe it's possible.
Adi also discusses the two-state solution.
The two-state solution would probably be the ideal solution, in my opinion, if only there could be some sort of dialogue between both sides that would hopefully be successful. I hope that happens soon.
As mentioned before, for this podcast, we did not take qualitative data measures, but rather conducted these interviews as a human interest project. We both find the conflict to be fascinating and hope that this podcast will inspire you to form your own opinion on the issue. Special thanks to Yazzan Baddour, Groer, Adi Landress, and Shirley Lukin.